Athletic Bilbao versus Sociedad, a derby. Both teams doing really well thus far this season, so I had to look at how they were setting up their teams. Unfortunately for Sociedad, we see just how hamstrung they seem to be without Kubo, and how Bilbao utilised quite a direct style, starting in the 8th minute with a Real Sociedad throw-in. Real's throw-ins were interesting on the left-hand side quickly. Tierney, especially in Atletico Bilbao's defensive third, provided long throw-ins, allowing them to attack the box directly. Whereas with Odriozola, they were having these near-sided players make runs from higher positions to lower positions, taking advantage of the fact that these man markers would track them, and ultimately that would then end up with this space vacated for a later runner to take advantage of, as we see with the movement of both Mendes and Zakarian from high to low, which eventually the unfortunately quite quiet Oyarzabal looks to try and exploit. I like this little routine, just demonstrated how in Atletico Bilbao, trying to be honest and defend those short throw-ins, they end up having to leave space elsewhere. And passes with good defending, Atletico Bilbao are rewarded for doing the right thing in defending Oyarzabal and clearing the ball, allowing Sociedad to reset, setting up into this 2-3-2-3 shape versus Atletico Bilbao in a 4-4-2. I have to say that Bilbao's press was highly organised, preventing passes into Zubimendi through the work of Sunset and Guruzeta, as well as also marking the short options when Sociedad did go out into their fullbacks into those wide spaces. It's only the 9th minute and possibly too reductivist, but Zubel Diaz long ball here towards the left hand side for Merino, and Berentea was one of quite a few hopeful long balls which seemed to involve playing the ball out into this left hand side and simply praying that Berentea could create a crossing opportunity from left wing in a 1v1 position. He's been in good form this season, but unfortunately he didn't carry that into the derby. Big reason for why I wanted to analyse this match was Sociedad being involved in the Champions League and so much being said about Kubo, whose influence likely could have tipped the scales a bit more in Sociedad's favour given how frenetic, how back and forth the game was, driven in large part by both teams attempting counter-attack, but especially Bilbao's very transitional style in possession. I think that was encapsulated by Sunset, who led numerous counters driven by both his busy dribbling style and his Basque fury. Whilst I'd say that Bilbao used a 2-4-1-3 shape, their focus on transitions made it difficult to establish a sustained midfield possession shape for them with easily identifiable routines. And I think this scenario in the 26th minute encapsulates that, because Atletico Bilbao were attacking through Berenguer on the right hand side, seeking to utilise Lecu, the right back, in this very attacking position. That attack breaks down and immediately Sociedad are looking to counter-attack. However, that's snuffed out, and to compound that, they haven't even been able to force Atletico Bilbao into resetting, and so Bilbao immediately then counter-attack themselves with some smart one-touch passing through that initial Sociedad counter-press, which is something they did really well throughout, and they get the ball into their star player, creating somewhat of a transition back down that left-hand side, and then that breaks down, and can you guess what happens next? And then moving on to the 48th minute, where we have Bilbao in this 2-3 shape with Basque pushing a little bit higher, and as they did throughout, they're using Guruzeta as the focal point for long balls, on this occasion on the right-hand side, unlike in the first half where it was typically on the left-hand side, looking to try and utilise Williams' pace. Speaking of, we can see Williams setting off from the blind side of the attack and looking to try and work off Guruzeta's flick on. I should mention that Williams was utilised all across the front. So whilst he started off on the left wing, in the second half he moved to the right wing, and at times during their build-up he even positioned as more of a centre-forward. And with Williams positioning on occasion as a centre-forward, it allowed Sancer and Guruzeta to be a lot more involved in the deeper build-up play, whilst forcing Real to respect that Bilbao had a legitimate threat in behind to counteract any efforts Sociedad put in trying to squeeze that more intricate, deeper build-up. Unfortunately, Williams isn't able to lay off to his support, and Sociedad get back in possession with Zubimendi able to dribble past this initial counter pressure, and we get a little bit of deja vu with a long ball out into this left-hand side channel and some pleading to Berenchea to try and carry the attack. Unfortunately, like the previous example, that move immediately breaks down and Bilbao get back into possession, setting up into that 2-4 4-1-3 as mentioned earlier, except now we have Williams as the centre forward against Sociedad in their 4-1-3-2 shape. And just as we saw with the earlier move and the long ball into Guruceta, we're seeing the same again here, except Williams is making his run from a more central position to work that flick on. I should also mention that Unai Simon preferred playing these longer balls rather than short passing build up from deep, looking to avoid the Sociedad press entirely for most of the game. That play breaks down, and on this occasion Sociedad actually managed to successfully set Berenchea on his way, and they're able to drag themselves up the pitch. However, even on this occasion, Bilbao just double up against him and he really struggles. Moving on slightly to the 50th minute, where we have Bilbao with these pairs in the wide spaces looking to try and get their wide midfielder in behind. I do just want to mention a slight alteration to Williams' position. So as we've mentioned how he can position all across the front, but on occasion he would just step just inside to engage both the fullback and centre back, which typically drag the fullback inside, and then that would create space for Bechiche to make an overlapping or underlapping run beyond him, as we saw for their goal. Unfortunately, the Atletico Bilbao attack breaks down, and then the ref gifts Sociedad this throw-in, which allows them to set up into this 2-3-2-3 shape versus Atletico Bilbao in this 4-4-2 or 4-1-3-2, depending on whether either of the centre midfielders look to try and pressure Zubimendi. Real Sociedad's goal is to create an advantage here, either through freeing up Zubimendi or one of the two number 8s. They do this by taking advantage of whichever one of the three isn't tracked. So we get to see Merino drop. This creates a ton of space here for Berenchea and Oyarzabal to potentially combine, as Basque has tracked Merino dropping, and moving with him, Ruiz has also pushed higher up, which of course then creates space for Mendes to potentially exploit too. Bilbao just need to be able to get the ball into this space between the lines, which is exactly what they try and do as they fire the ball down the wing. And so now, as this ball is played up the wing, Zubimendi is rushing to try and take advantage of any passing lane that opens up here, as well as later Oyarzabal used to make more of a run across to take advantage of Atletico Bilbao's fullback tracking. So you can see that depending on the movement of Atletico Bilbao centre midfielders as this play develops, Sociedad will have a number of potential passing options from this wide space between the lines for them to then try and transition. Unfortunately, Bilbao are set up well enough to block the pass into Zubimendi, and of course they immediately transition into a counter-attack. On to the 72nd minute, where we've got Unai Simon playing yet another long goal kick into that 2-4-1-3 or 2-4-4 shape. Again, Guruceta as your focal point. This long ball focus, I think, also contributed to the frenetic nature of the game, because it can gift opposition back possession quite easily, as we've seen on this occasion, leading to that 2-3 setup again. And then from that 2-3 versus the 4-4-2 shape, Real Sociedad in the second half were a lot quicker in progressing the ball up the pitch, typically from their centre backs into the wide midfielders as fast as possible. At this point, using the substitutes such as Daddy near side, and the fact that they were playing it as quick as possible from back to front to try and overload the fullback near side. Unfortunately, Bilbao were just solid. With that, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, consider sharing it on social media, liking and subscribing, preferably all three. And with that, we're out.